let's
That's
get
it.
into the podcast. So, appreciate you joining. Of course, we've known each other for a very long time now, and I thought it was important to get on this episode of the Consistency Club podcast. I wanted to, speak to more of our clients around their journey because I think there's a lot of a value to be gained for potential listeners in terms of the journey you go on as a father, as a husband, as a busy career man trying to juggle their health and improve their longevity. So appreciate you joining. Obviously, as I said, we've been working together for over 6 months now. So I know who you are, what you do, and the
Mm.
background story. But if you don't mind, Philip, just introduce yourself and give
Yep.
people a little bit of a background, if that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So I'm, as Jamie said, my name's Philip Gould. Professionally, I run a property development finance company. In private life, a wife and a young son, 2.5 years old now, and I've got another one on the way in 5 weeks' time. So busy work life, busy family life. As you've already heard, big Liverpool fan as well. Trying to fit all that in has always been difficult. As much as I've always tried to fit in, family and exercise and health and all the rest of it. It's always been for the last decade probably that health that was coming last, and eventually as I was looking at professionally wise and family, and it comes a time when I think in a lot of men's lives when you realise you have to make a change if you're going to look to really have longevity and health and be there for your family for the long term. So I think Jamie came along via LinkedIn. We do get a few things on LinkedIn every now and again with people coming to you, and it just so happened that I've been doing a bit of work kind of professionally on my work side, which had led into me thinking about how I could potentially take more care of myself and therefore be better for my family, be better at work, and sometimes lightning strikes twice, and met a professional coach, and then met Jamie at a similar time, and we've kind of taken it from there.
Brilliant. And it's been a fantastic journey. Obviously, we'll get into the details and
Mm.
what's been achieved so far and where we're going. I've got the countdown in front of me that says 33 days until baby number two.
Oh right, okay,
Within
yeah.
the app. So
Oh, thanks for that.
yeah, just to remind you of what's coming. But
Mm.
which is incredible. And obviously we discussed the journey of how we're going to transition the program through
Mm.
that busy period as well. If it's okay, Philip, and thank you for that summary. Let's start with where you were from a mindset perspective when I
Mm.
reached out, because when it comes to health and fitness and what I do as a service, we can't help someone who doesn't want to be helped or
Yep.
recognize that there's a need to be helped. So where were you headspace wise when we first had our initial conversation?
Yeah, it's a really interesting question because if I think about, say, the last 15 years of my life, I've probably been the quintessential yo-yoer. I'd have a thing to look towards. I'd do a triathlon to get really, really healthy. I'd go, I've succeeded at my goals, and then I'd fall all the way back to where I
Yeah.
was before. Work would get in the way of different things, and I wasn't really focusing in the right ways. And then actually, it wasn't really a focus on health and fitness that started this. It was a focus on how can I do better at work overall, and the work I was doing around that focused quite heavily on to be better. You don't have to outwardly focus; you have to inwardly focus first. You have to,
Mm.
if you want to take care of other people, you want to take care of your work life, you want to take care of everything. You have to take care of yourself first, and you have to do things which are good for you, and then outwardly you'll be able to achieve some of the other goals that you have. And I've always wanted to be in a position where I'm fit and healthy. And, you've seen I had a gym in my back garden
Yeah.
in one of the rooms and stuff, and had everything there, had all
And a
the,
cold plunge.
and a cold plunge. Didn't have it at the time, but, I did actually, but had everything there, had the desire to be there. And I knew I've done it before, and I knew that I could
Mm.
do it. And I think the issue that I probably had was one of motivation, and especially one of accountability.
Yeah.
Um, I find I can be very accountable when I've got someone to be accountable to. If I've just got to be accountable to myself, then that's probably the easiest person to let down. If that kind of makes sense, you can
Yeah.
kind of go, don't worry, I'll do it tomorrow. But you know, I was very much then, when you came to me, I was very much in a mindset of, actually, maybe this is something good for me. I've been trying to put everything in place for me to live a healthier life, to put things in place where I'm eating healthier, I'm exercising all the time, and potentially working with a coach is the way to go, really. Somebody who's got a lot of professional background in this, understands the different steps that need to go into it, putting in place an actual program rather than me just going in the gym, lifting a few things, putting them down and coming back a week later. I'm really putting a formulaic approach to something where you can actually see longevity out of it. So rather than I've got a triathlon to come up to. I'll work really hard for 3 months and then I'll forget about it. This is more, I need to put the steps in place which I can continue this on a daily, weekly, monthly basis. And you just came at the perfect time where I was starting to think about that. We had our initial conversation. Obviously, being a Liverpool fan helped a little bit in terms of my decision making, because I knew we'd
Yeah.
always have that. And I think we hit it off really quickly in terms of you were saying all the right things. You're busy. We'll fit it around your diary. We had that initial chat. We showed how it could work, and we just take it from there.
Yeah, absolutely. I think there's a few things to pick up there, and one of them is, what gets measured gets improved, and it's so easy to get stuck in that loop, whether it comes to training or nutrition or even just habits and routines of just doing when it feels like you can semi fit it in. But as you said, there's no like repeatable system that's assessing, okay, how was my performance when I did that? And how do I use that data to then optimize and better myself? So relate to that. And I think the first point you made was really interesting one about looking intrinsically. I think it's so easy in that position to think of that as like selfish a little bit, to prioritize ourselves and look at what we should be doing. But actually, when you break it down, you serve your career and your finances. You're a father. You serve in your relationship as a husband and to your friends and as a son. So, like, if you're not the optimal version of yourself, as you recognized, and obviously you were in that headspace at the start, then you can understand how flipping that on its head and understanding that, yes, I'm going to put a little bit more time on myself, but it's not for a selfish reason, and it's going to have, or create growth existentially outside of just looking good, feeling good, and being healthier. I think that's a really important journey to go on. What was, when you joined, because everyone's journey looks a little bit differently, what was the key motivating factor outside of like optimizing your lifestyle? What was the one thing you really wanted to achieve?
I think it was to really put myself in a position where I knew I could be. Having seen what I was able to do previously with the correct motivation and putting the right things in place, I knew that I could be fit and healthy, and that's always where I've wanted to be, both from a mental perspective and also from a physical perspective. But it's putting in place something which actually is going to continue to work for me. If you if you spoke to my wife, she'd be able to tell you the most frustrating thing that I found was starting here, getting there, and then 12 months later ending up back at the same place again. And then you feel so drained. You're like, I've got to go through all of that again.
You
So
get
that
to
was
a
really
point, don't you, where it's like, what's the point almost? If
big,
I'm
big.
just gonna fall back into the same ditch every time, I may as well just not get out.
Yeah, well, that was it, and it was like then it's like, but then it was almost like I know I'm going to get to a certain age when this actual transition is just going to take twice as long. It's going to
Yeah.
be twice as hard. I'm going to have two kids instead of one. My job's going to take up more of my life than it was before, and frankly, it's probably just not going to be. Well, it'll still be possible, but it's going to become exponentially more difficult. And it just was. I just knew it was that time to really make that change, make the change that I needed for myself, needed for my family, and something I've evidently wanted to do. It's not like I had to go out there and buy all the stuff or get the gym memberships or anything
Yeah.
else. It was something I've always wanted to do. It's something, and you remember when I've even said it to you when we've now looked at the side by side pictures. I didn't even realize how bad I'd got to. I actually thought, I still use the gym, I still cycle here and there. I didn't think it was. I thought I was still doing the things I needed to do. But I've where I actually go with this is the next stage. Really, I don't. It's
Yeah.
quite nice not to actually have an end target. It's the target is longevity, the target is health, the target is to continue on the process. There'll be something at some point which I decide to go and do, whether or not it's a longer triathlon or something.
Yeah.
But that won't be the goal. That will just be part of the journey.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's a really important point, that transition of mindset from being data or event focused to actually like a little bit more existential focus in terms of
Mm,
longevity. Because as you said, the yo-yo cycle is something, and many people listening will either have gone through this or know someone close to them that goes through it. It just breaks you down as an individual, doesn't
mm,
it? You wait until you have these really high intense points of motivation because,
mm,
whether you feel like you're overweight, you're leading a lifestyle that isn't optimal, you want to be better, you kind of ride that wave, that crest, and so you chuck yourself into doing something, and that may be signing up for an event, and that takes a certain amount of an intensity, doesn't it? It's like going from
mm,
0 to 80 and then to 100 really, really quick.
mm.
And you either burn out if you've got no target, and if you have the target when you get there and you come out the other end, you're left in this no man's land
Yeah.
of low motivation and desire to get back to that intensity, but no understanding of how to pick it back up and run with it as like a system to use with longevity in mind. So I'm glad from a mindset perspective you've gone through that transition. Obviously,
Mm.
the journey's been, as we said, a brilliant one. I'll go into some of the numbers shortly. Although
Mm.
this wasn't solely like come on board, let's get you in shape. I mean, you look like a completely different person, don't you? I
Mm.
think in terms of the figures, I've got them written down down here. So we've got 16 based on our highest and our lowest readings, over 16 kilos lost. So for
Mm.
anyone in America, that's 35.3 pounds in around 6 months. So the first weight of 98.61 kilos was the starting weight. So that was where we started. You're
And I was
currently,
actually about a month and a half because we knew we were going to start earlier. So I
yeah,
actually started a little bit before. My actual peak just before we started was 103 kilos.
so
So
103 kilos, and you're today 82.9
yeah,
with the lowest reading a few days back of 82.6, which is,
yeah,
incredible. Talk about, because it's great to look good and we all want to feel confident, and body confidence is, it's big for mental health and big for our internal physiology. But talk about how that journey has impacted your life in other areas.
well, obviously the position I'm in now is I feel a lot better, but I mean it certainly wasn't. Wasn't a straight linear line to
Yeah,
from 103 to 83, and I think one of the things that I would have been liking to hear from people who've been in a similar position is when you're working, how do you continue on this path from where you want to be to where you want to get to? And I've had many a plateau, many times I've been abroad or Christmas or whatever else it would be, and there's spikes and peaks and troughs. But just generally going from that heavier weight and just seeing the natural progression is, I mean, it just makes you internally feel good. I mean, I never. It's when you start using the pictures as well, right? That's been a huge bit for me when you can see that, um, you can see that progression from where we were at the start to where I am now, and then you can see it week by week, the pounds coming off, and then you have the first picture and the picture that you're at now. The confidence that builds in you and your ability to actually execute is massive. And obviously, people that you've seen 6 months ago now see you again, and walk past you in the street, and then you have to say hello, and
yeah,
you're like, oh, you look like a completely like literally I'm a 25% lower weight, so it's fantastic.
yeah, absolutely. And it's nice to get that, although it seems somewhat superficial, it's really nice to get the external gratification, because when you're like intensely in this and your mind's aligned to it, and obviously me and you have loads of communication, and I deliver the results to you weekly and we're speaking all the time, but still, because you're looking and you're analyzing and you're in the process, it kind of just happens, doesn't it? And
Yeah.
you blink and a few months has gone for someone externally to go, oh my god, Philip, like you look like a new person. It's like the reinforcement that,
Mm.
okay, yes, that I'm doing what I'm doing is somewhat hard and it's challenging on some days, because I think it's an important message for anyone that wants to go through a journey, whether that's to better their health markers, maybe they got hypertension, maybe they want to lose body fat, whatever that journey looks like for them.
Mm.
It's going to be difficult. I don't think anyone should paint the narrative that come in, it's going to be a breeze, you're going to have loads of fun, and at the end of it you're going to look, feel incredible and have that assistant to use for the rest of your life. It comes with hard work, right?
Yeah.
I always say, like, I can cut down the path, but you've got to tread it yourself, and that path is going to be, there's going to be some ups and there's going to be some downs along the way.
Oh, that's
um
it's absolutely right, mate. It's kind of like have had having a young child. There's going to be illnesses on the way.
yep,
There's going to be times when you're going to be out with work. And I honestly think that one of the major things about one, tracking weight almost on a daily basis, and then two, the pictures, and then obviously discussing with you and you just going, just get back on it, is a week doesn't do the damage. It's
yeah,
like it's the weeks on weeks on weeks and the months on months that do the damage.
yeah,
I actually, I think historically I'd be like, oh, do you know, I haven't been in the gym for a week. Oh, I'm just not going to go back. Or, I haven't
hmm,
been for a month. I'm not going to go back. From now I've realized, it doesn't really have that much of an impact. You can go on holiday. You can do this.
yeah,
Just get back into your routine. Just get back on
exactly,
it. And it's just,
yeah,
just pick it up again. Just keep going. Yeah, you put on a kilo here, you put on a kilo there. A lot of it's water, as I've quickly learned. but it's just all about that consistency. It's the name of the club for a reason, right? It is about that
Exactly.
consistency. It's about that accountability to yourself and frankly to the community now, I guess, a little bit as well. That everyone, it's nice to hear that other people on similar journeys, right? It's knowing that you've got someone to speak to around these things and the support that you get from it. Sometimes just going, all right, you've got a cold, just go and do it. Just get back in the gym. In your heart that you're not ill enough not to go and pick the weight up. You're not too ill to go and do
Yeah.
whatever else. You're not too busy to go and do that. If you wanted to, you would find the time. And if you really want to, by joining this community, you clearly know in your mind that you do want to do this, because that's the whole reason you've joined, and it's using that as a backstop mentally, just to be like, no, give you that reinforcement that you should just be out there and getting it done.
Yeah, absolutely. And one sort of phrase that I use quite a lot, and you will have heard me say, is "one hot day doesn't make a summer." So you're absolutely right in that. And I think life moves traditionally at such a pace. Like, we all get to Christmas and New Year, and the overwhelming narrative, I'm sure, in our household is, where the hell's this year gone? Right, life just moves. So if you're not mentally aligned or in tune or thinking about your health necessarily, when you go on that holiday for a week and you come back, before you know it, you've got a week settling into work, and then you're back in routine, and then something else crops up. And if you're not mentally planning or dialed into it, as you said, a week turns into a month. And as soon as you passed a month, like 30 days of not actioning, you've pretty much broken all those habits that were external, and you're trying to make it internal. So yeah, but you're absolutely right. It's not about going on holiday, like, and I would never say, and you've experienced, go on holiday and track your food and hit every single workout to the T. Like, it doesn't. Life is more than that, right? And
Yeah.
one thing we're massive of, and why it's called the Consistency Club, there has to be sustainability in it, and no one wants to do that. No one wants their coach to say to them, right, you're going on holiday. We work so hard to be able to facilitate taking your family on holiday, and to say, don't have a beer by the pool and sort of indulge in some all inclusive and whatever it may be. It's just a ridiculous way to live. But you just rest assured knowing that, okay, one, I'm more in tune with the effects, so naturally you make slightly better decisions anyway. I've put in a load of graft before I do that. My mind's actually in tune with, I get the enjoyment out of training. So where I can, if the family has a quiet period and the family are a little bit chilled out, I can go to the gym or can do a run along the beach, whatever it may be. And when I get home, I'm straight back on it. No harm done. And a lot of the harm's done in our own mind, because we
Yeah.
start to self sabotage. Just touch on that a little bit more for me, in terms of the phases that we've been through, from going on holiday, from Christmas, from some illnesses, and how your mindset has changed around those things. You touched on it briefly then, in terms of understanding it's not be all and end all. But how has that changed your thought process, and how will it change your thought process for the next, foreseeable future, rest of your life, hopefully?
Yes, if I cast my mind all the way to the very start, I think it was difficult for me to get into the process in the first bit. I think obviously because you're starting a brand new way of living, you're going to bed earlier, you're training in the morning, you're eating in a different way, and everything plays out. And I think I probably wanted to see, as everyone does, immediate results. You want, why have I not gone from 98 to 92 kilos in the space of 3 weeks? And
Yeah.
you kind of like, you get frustrated, and then then we talk, and you realize it's a process, right? Your calories are actually quite high because you're getting used to everything, and then you're moving through the process. And then I think I plateaued quite quickly at around 92, and a bit frustrated by that. And it's, again, probably if I was on my own, I'd be like, oh, do you know what, this isn't working. But then obviously the discussions with yourself, it's mindset more than anything. No, come on, just keep moving through it. Bit of positivity as well. And it's when you really start to see, for me, I think 90 was always going to be a big number. Around 89, 90 is kind of where I've always been able to get to myself, just by working out on my own. And then obviously when I started, I think between 89 and like 84, that just came off like nothing, when I really got into the process, when I really started to see the consistency that you put into it, in terms of either the weight that you're lifting or the movements that you're doing, the cardio, everything. It starts to become more natural. It starts to become a bit easier. Going to bed early becomes a bit easier. You start to enjoy waking up a little bit more early in the morning, getting your workout, rather going, oh God, I've got to go and do my workout. You're out of bed. I'm going to go and do my workout. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
The food that you're eating, all of a sudden you start craving the healthy stuff rather than the crap, because your body needs it. You start getting into that routine as well, and it just became part of life. My mindset, compared to where I was, where I had it all written down. I've got to get up, got to get up early, got to take my vitamins, do the green stuff, do whatever else, bit of stretching in the morning. And now, regardless, I'm up, I'm doing that. I'm not thinking about it. It's become almost second nature in a lot of different ways. And then it's all about what can I add into my process already. I'm very lucky that the CEO of our business who I work with really closely, called Dimitri, he's very much on the same path as I am. He's cold plunging, he's saunaing, he's reflecting, and yoga, all this great stuff. So to have somebody else who understands that kind of process that we're going with, that I work with so closely, is been great as well. And we were talking about it yesterday, and it's no one little thing. It's the accumulation of all the different items that we're adding into our lives, or frankly, the things that you're taking out and adding with something new, which is creating holistically just a better version of yourself, more healthy, focusing on the right things rather than the wrong things. And if you slip off a little bit, that's fine. Just get back to it. It's shifted my mindset completely away from this is just something I'd like to do to this is just what I do. It's just part of life now, and it's frankly it's one of the most enjoyable parts of my life. Either getting in the gym or pushing myself through doing a cold plunge for 3 minutes, which when I first started, 40 seconds was a problem. Now we're up to 3 minutes. And I remember you were saying, it's actually the mental battle of that, which is as rewarding as anything else.
Mm-hmm.
I've walked around the bottom of the house for 20 minutes before thinking of different things I can do to not go and get in the cold plunge, and then eventually saying, yeah, right, just go and get in. And then you're in, you're out. You're like, amazing, right? You feel brilliant, mentally challenged yourself, mentally broke that barrier, and you put yourself ahead of where you wanted to be. So
100%. The details matter, and what you said rings so true. When it comes to whether it's like cold water therapy or extended sauna or morning light, whatever it may be, whatever habit you've built into your lifestyle, the number one question I get: what are the benefits? Like from a physiological standpoint, and I always stress reverse engineer that thought. Like the physiological benefits are great, and of course we want them. But the biggest win I believe you get from any of those things is the mental hurdle. Like if you get into that cold plunge at the moment here in the UK, it's absolutely freezing, right? I mean, the last couple of days haven't been so bad, but you're talking water temperatures are probably like 3 degrees, aren't
I
you?
had it down at 2 degrees last week.
Exactly, 2 degrees, which like if you can get out in the dark, it's pitch black, and you get in this little plastic tub of 2 degree water for 3 minutes, and you're in your thoughts, everything in your body is screaming, get out. To even get in, you overcome that hurdle. You've done something that 99% of people aren't willing to do, and you get all of the host of benefits after. And it's like the internal respect of, and you spoke about it in terms of just aligning to this process, the internal confidence and your ability to execute that first quick win in the morning. Like there's so much growth there.
Well,
And it,
I think Andrew Huberman and David Goggins were talking about it on a podcast the other day. There's a
brilliant
part of
podcast, wasn't it?
unbelievable. There's a part
Yeah.
of the brain where when you do something you don't want to do, it grows, and
Yeah.
by that growth, it creates longevity. You're challenging yourself, and
Yeah.
it's when that then becomes easy. You need to find a new thing to go and challenge yourself, because it's that challenge which your physiology and your mental state comes from. It's like, I
Mm.
don't want to do this. I'm going to do it anyway, and you're just building resilience into your system.
Yeah. I can't remember who said this. I believe it's a book, but grow or die.
Hmm.
It's that kind of mentality, isn't it? If you
Yeah.
stop challenging yourself or developing or growing or learning, we just dwindle. So, and one thing you touched on going to the very start of that was around holding yourself back a little bit and changing your mindset in the early phase and understanding that it needs to be done in a measured way. Most of my job in the early phase of working with anyone is actually holding people back
Hmm.
because, and I'll always say momentum in this, well, it's the most powerful force in the universe, but momentum's really important because momentum solidifies you as someone going through the process mind like, okay, this is working, this is worth the investment, this is good. But often if you achieve really, really quick, intense results, I'm talking like maybe 2.5, 3 kilos of fat loss in the first week, and you sustain that, and things are moving really quickly, and you're kind of hammering the gym, you're doing all these things. There is no longevity, and you'll get to a point, and you're kind of in that yo-yo system again, right? Really
Hmm.
intense at the start, no longevity, sustainability. You're going to burn out, and you're going to end up at square one. So understanding that, okay, we need to keep food high. I'm not going to chuck a million things at you. I need to understand your lifestyle
mm,
first, and we'll build it up into a system that understands you. And eventually it will click. And whether that's within the first week or whether it takes 3 weeks,
mm,
just know it's the best way for it to be done. And that was an important point that you made. And I'm hell bent on spreading that philosophy and
yeah.
something inside the consistency club, because you know, the longevity is a word in essence, and what does it mean? We all want to live a little bit longer, but actually longevity in what you're doing is really important. You don't have any of that. You don't have any
Mm,
longevity in the lifestyle you lead if you get those super quick instant gratification results, which in this world of content and social media and whatever it may be, we all really like.
mm.
um
Yeah, if you asked me to do what I'm doing today, if you said at the start, right, go and do all of that stuff now, I'd be like, I'd have been a weekend and be like, this is mental.
yeah,
I'm not going to do it. Well, maybe I've done it for a month and then, I'd have been absolutely drained. So you're absolutely right. It's the program, it's the strategy around how you're going to end up where you want to be.
yeah,
And I think that's probably what a lot of people struggle with, right? You go online and you download a workout plan and a food plan and something like this and that and whatever else it is, and you try and build it all together yourself, but it's not actually it's not made for you. It's made for, the average person, and nobody's the average person, right? So you need something where it fits in with your schedule, it fits in with what you want to do in the gym, it fits in with the outcomes you actually want to have. And that's obviously where this has become, the program is so beneficial. There'll be loads of people out there who probably hit the gym 3 times a week and just don't see results.
yeah,
And it's because they don't. And why would they know, right? Why would you don't know? People who aren't professionals in a certain area wouldn't know, even when it's just lifting weights. It's just lifting weights, right? But it's
yeah,
doing it. That's the first thing I actually noticed. You were like, take half the weight off, do it properly,
yeah,
and you'll start to see results. So
yeah.
I'm still not. I don't even think now in the techniques that you've shown me that I'm lifting as much weight as I was previously, but I'm lifting it right, and the definition and the impact that it's had on my physique has been huge. So it's doing things in the right way will get the results rather than just hammering away at something which you think is working, but it just isn't.
Yeah, 100%. And when it comes to that training piece, it's really important because people get stuck in that loop until you've got safe training down in terms of, and like take the safety away from it and risk of injury, even just the right form in terms of range of motion. Because if you look at a lot of people, the range of motion is not there. Once you've got that, it's a motor neuron pattern that you'll keep, and
Mm,
that's when you can dial up intensity. And I think I did a podcast episode on this. A big culprit for a lot of people not seeing results isn't what they're doing, it's the intensity they do it.
mm,
Like you walk into a gym and you can point out sort of 80% of those people, they're not present in what they're doing. They may be on a phone or they're sitting around. They'll pick up the weights for a bit. They'll do 10 reps of that weight because they've been doing 10 reps of that weight for the last 5 years, and they'll come out and they'll be in the same place at the end of the year. So just the first is always assessing, right?
mm,
Assessing what you've been doing, then providing the knowledge, because knowledge is power. And if I can install everything that I know in your mind, you can action this in 10 years' time.
mm.
Whether, I'd love you to be part of the community for 10 years and it'd be brilliant, right? But if I've done my job, I shouldn't have you one on one for
Yeah.
for 10 years. You should have all of my knowledge downloaded. But it goes back to the point you raised around everyone's different, and you're spot on. Genetics, likes, dislikes, preferences, lifestyle, everything that makes you you isn't the same as,
Mm,
like, I couldn't give myself the program that you had because I would
mm,
respond differently, even from the way down, like you metabolize food, for example. Yeah, people often turn to finding a training program online or
mm,
trying keto or the 5-2 diet or wait what yeah. And look, don't get me wrong, these things can serve you, and I've tried them myself, but you have to have an understanding of your bioprofile
mm,
first. Like, how do I get the results? And then these are little, it's like the 3-day water fast that I've just done. If I needed to lose body fat and I was in a bit of a rut, and I go, do you know what, I'm going to do a 3-day water fast. There's no real value in that. I'm in a good
mm,
position. I'm doing it from an educational standpoint to see how I react as an individual, knowing the baseline positive effects that it can have for some people. There's some people that naturally, because of, you know, whether it's blood pressure, like you couldn't do it. So it's just
mm,
understanding you as an individual. Um, we're going through a transition period now. Obviously, we've been fairly intense to get
mm,
the closer to 20 kilos off from your starting weight of 103 kg. You've got baby number 2 on the way.
Mm.
We've got through Christmas. Just explain the mindset change, because obviously you've decided to stay on board, which is brilliant, and obviously there'll
Yeah.
be that accountability piece. Talk about that decision from your end, and first of all, if you don't mind, an overview of how you found the initial 6 months
Yeah.
and your mindset now you've been through the consistency club in a circle, moving through the next six.
Okay, I'll start with the first 6 months. I think I've probably said it to you before. It's probably one of the most rewarding things that I've ever actually done. And I think not only is it put the patterns in place, it's the achievement at the back end of it. Anyone who's going through the same process, you're obviously seeing that progression and seeing now what you can do. You're waking up early, you're working out right, you're eating well, and that's fed through. I had a knee injury just before we joined as well. I mean, the effect, the reason why I had the knee injury was obviously that my legs were a little bit weak. I've put a load more strength into my legs, and I don't have any of the issue in my left knee that I used to have. So seeing something which has been really, really an issue for me for probably 5 years, I wouldn't say it's completely disappeared, but it's getting there, which is it's just massive. Being able to play with my son, actually kneel down was obviously a problem before because my knees can do that now. It sounds like minor things, but it's all those little bits that have added up into, having a huge impact on my life. Friends and family would say the same in terms of not only the way that I look, which is obviously great. It's nice to look better, but also my mental state as well. And I, this may sound corny. The most impactful thing that it's had for me is the actual impact that it's had on other people. There's been a few
Yeah.
people in my life who've taken a similar path or are on the similar path because of what they've seen me do. Now, part of that could be like, okay, the state he was in, if he can do it, I could do it.
Yeah.
But even if it is that, right, that's great, because I'm not saying inspirational or anything, but somebody who, if anybody can see somebody and make a change on the basis of that, that's great, right? Because we've got a big group of friends, and you see somebody who's making a change for the better, and you realise, okay, maybe it's a similar time for me to do that. So there's been a loads of different areas which have been super positive for me from the process, and I think what then it's like, well, why not just continue to do what you were doing before with the training programs that you've put in place and just continue. And I think one of the owners of our business was put it perfectly. It's kind of like I'm in second season mode now. So I've come up from the championship.
Yeah.
I finished 15th, even though in my own mind I've won the Premier League.
Yeah.
And now I'm being a bit calm, and like if I don't
Well, I think you've come
continue,
up from League One.
I'll probably.
You've jumped two in one, mate.
Yeah, I jumped
That's
2 in 1.
fun.
But in your own mind, when you hit that target, you've won the Premier League, right? But you haven't really.
Mm.
You've just survived relegation. You've just got
Yep.
through. You've worked really, really hard. You've done really well. But now the most important bit is you get that consistency. You continue to push on, and you don't fall backwards. You don't get relegated again. And that's actually what's worrying me the most, right? Because I did this for a reason. I did this to get healthy, all the things that I've just mentioned. But I've got this transition period, second baby coming along. I know this period is going to be difficult, and I do have to transition from 4 or 5 workouts a week, waking up early, which I can do reasonably easily because of my wife is obviously very helpful with the baby and all this good stuff, into a period where there's going to be a lot more support from me needed by the family, and getting a workout in is going to be more difficult, and work's still going to have its pressures and all that kind of good stuff. So there is a transition period which we're going to work on together about how I continue to. I hope to continue to progress, but almost for me, progression or doing well here would almost be standing still or just continuing to make little changes here and there and continue my lifestyle as much as I can. And then really it's about a few months down the line after that, how do I continue to move on into something new? And if I'm honest, I don't know what that looks like. I think where I am now is probably what my goal was, and now that I've achieved my goal, I need a new goal, right? And because it's so far away from what I thought was possible,
Yeah.
I don't know how to go ahead and achieve that, and even what that looks like. Is it just a better physique? Is it more working on myself mentally? Is it flexibility? I don't really know, right? And I think that's probably what we're going to work on when we've got through this next stage in setting a goal, setting a path, and just continuing to work on that.
Yeah, exactly. And even, now we've broken that kind of yo-yo cycle or event dependent mindset. An event maybe not the worst thing to go and
Mm.
do, but I think essentially a good way to summarize it is you've gone from like a net negative position, like you're below where you should have been, to
Mm.
now you're in a position where it's like, okay, I'm proud of who I am. This is where I should be all along. And the journey moving forward is like, okay, how do I better myself?
Yep.
So you're constantly looking at like anything above what we do now is going to be optimizing a really good version of you. So we've made up the deficit now.
Mm.
Now is, we're on that title charge. We've caught them up,
I
and now
didn't
we've
think I was
got
quite in League One, but now that you mention it, yeah, probably.
to. No,
Probably.
I'm jesting. Um, so yeah, it's been, like I said, it's been incredible, and I can see the growth just in our conversations and the journey through. Of course, like data is really important, and we always make the data-led decisions, but it's also about people and us having a relationship and understanding how you're motivated and the nuances of your life. Because the worst thing in the world is to have a coach in any facet, whether it's business coach or health and fitness coach, who doesn't really understand what you're saying to them. If you were to say to me, Jamie, I'm going through this really busy period in the next X month and I'm going to need to dial things back, and you've got a coach that goes, no, Philip, you've got to stay to it. And it has to be some flexibility to it because life's ever evolving. If you're in like a phase where you're looking for really quick results, that works, right? Just that hard faced accountability.
Mm.
But if the role the goal is to scale this over the next sort of 10 years, you have to understand how to flex the intensity of what you're doing. So
Mm.
rather than going 100% burning out zero, 100% burning out zero, yes, we want you as close to 100% all the time, but we understand that you're going to drop to 75 sometimes.
Yep.
And that's okay. And for that, not to like overrule you mentally and to be all or nothing, but to kind of settle into it. We adjust the metrics for what success looked like, as you said. So like I would still say we can progress, but the metric of progression is slightly different. So it might
Mm.
be progression in a slight movement if we rejig the training plan, or it might be a physique recomposition, even if weight isn't going to be changing, whatever it may be. But settling into a system is the first thing. When baby number two comes along, you understand how life looks and the demands on you within that period. Um, and then we just adjust it accordingly. And I think what's really important is the mindset you've already got, which is I understand this is going to change slightly. I
Mm.
understand some of my routines I'm going to have to sacrifice, which is fine, but I'm not giving up on the habitual system that I've
Yep.
built, because a lot of the habits, as you said, they've what was an external habit that I'm pushing on you and asking you to do, they're now internal. Like you get up and you don't think
Mm.
about it and you don't action, and that's where the real growth is. Um, I talk a lot about habits and routines
Mm.
because we can all do training, nutrition, we can do all those things, but actually the lifestyle is really important. Out of the habits and routines, what's the one that's had the biggest impact on you?
I was literally just about to say, kind of, out of all of that, it's the sleep pattern, which
Mm,
I think has had. I mean, in terms of what I think is the reason why I can achieve everything else, it's the sleep pattern and putting in a bit of work into that. I mean, I was probably a bit all over the place, circadian rhythm all over the place, go to bed whenever really, and then try and wake up, 6:30, 7, go to work, and then try and do some gym at the back of the day. And it's reorganizing my day, which is focusing on sleep, and then realizing that you can actually just move that to where works for you. So previously going to bed a bit later, now shifting that to when I was a 20-year-old, if I thought I was going to bed at 9 o'clock, being asleep by 9:30 and waking up at 5, I would never believe that would be me. But it's cutting things out of my life, which has allowed that to happen. Just mindlessly watching TV in the evening and thinking, you know what, I actually want to get some sleep so I can wake up and actually execute on my goals in the morning. 5 till half quarter to 7 is kind of my time, and it's not dreary-eyed and difficult to do because you've still managed to get your decent sleep in there as well. So that I think has allowed me to execute on absolutely everything. And then it's kind of secondary from that is probably just concentrating on what I'm actually doing when I'm in the gym, rather
yeah.
than just, what am I going to do today? I'll do arms. What does that mean? Okay, well, that's free. I'll go and do that. And then, okay, well, that's not free. So I'll just go and do some chest instead or something, and
Yeah.
not really having any program to it whatsoever. Whereas this has been probably more structured than I actually expected. Kind of like, I remember we'd go into you, oh, should we not change it up? You're like, no,
Yeah.
it's working. It's working. You're continuing to see progression. You continue to see definition. You're losing weight. You're building strength. Let's stick to this. So that's what I would always have done. I'd have done triceps one way, one day, and then I've done it a different way, a different day, and whatever else. And the formulaic approach and understanding what probably just what training actually is,
Yeah.
rather than just having the weights in your in your room. It's actually using them in the right way. It's a tool to get the results that you want, but you've got to use that tool in the right way. So I think kind of the framework that you've given me in terms of how to actually lift weights in the right way, how to dial things in properly to get the results that you want, has probably been the second most important impact.
Yeah, sure. And training one's a really interesting one because I think the point you raised there will resonate with a lot of people listening in terms of the way that you train. And
Mm,
particularly, I mean, if there is any coaches listening, one mistake that is so common in our industry is switching up almost to the request of a client, switching up with the training so often because you're trying to justify like a value. Like to a client, they're like, what, sometimes the mindset can be, which I can understand, well, the training hasn't changed for 6 weeks. So like,
yeah,
why's
what are you
that?
actually doing?
Yeah, well, yeah, exactly. When
Yeah.
it's actually, you know, training is so important. You have longevity in what you're doing because first of all,
Mm,
you build the motor neuron patterns. It takes time, depending on the base that you're starting at, to do that with the appropriate intensity to do it safely. And just as you do that, you get to the point where the body's in a position you found your base strength, you can start to work to progressive overload, and the really like small wins of adding 1.25 kilograms or
mm,
whatever it may be to that movement are the things that make a dramatic difference. And just as you get to that point, you switch it up
mm.
and the body goes to a whole new system. And then just as you get to that point with that movement, you switch it up again. And this whole thing of you need to keep the body and the muscles guessing, it's a load of BS. So
Yeah.
like the longevity in the training is really important, and of course sleep. Going back to your original point, sleep is the core of everything, right? It's one of our four key pillars of movement, nutrition, sleep, and stress. And I think a lot of people label themselves as either morning people or night people. Realistically, it's just your body's in a clock. Your circadian rhythm understands the system
Mm,
that you've trained it to be in. Naturally, some people's are later. Naturally, some people's are earlier. But actually, you can train yourself to get up earlier. It takes a little bit of time. When you do that, you have to just figure out what works around your schedule. But if you can get good quality sleep, a decent duration, and in
mm.
a repeatable system depending on travel, it's going to give you the best foothold moving forward.
Yeah, I think the
Um,
thing that you set in place with me was kind of at the first bit was got out of bed. Was it on the first alarm? I can't remember the actual wording
yeah.
was, and you had to tick the box, right? And it's like I could just, it's only a box to tick, right? I can just tick it anyway. But part of the training that I've done previously with my other development coaches about honesty as well. So it's like I want to be able to tick that box, and
Oh,
you know, signal's gone a little bit. I want to be able to tick that box, and then that really has given me the realization that you can just do it. I think everyone has that problem of, it's difficult to get out of bed, but it's just about swinging your legs out and just do it, just get out. And
yeah.
it's just everything. It's kind of built layer on layer of just adding little bits of responsibility into your life, little bits of accountability, and then it becomes second nature. I mean, I was definitely a night owl. I was, late nights, and not finding it difficult to get up in the morning. And I've completely pivoted from that to, as I say, bed at 9, half 9, and waking up at 5 to get on with the day.
Yeah, for sure. And apologies about the visuals. I think my camera's overheated. I'm using the camera
Oh,
as
really?
a webcam, believe it or not. Yeah, and I don't
Yeah.
think I can change it mid session. So we'll carry on with audio. But yeah, 100%. And those seemingly menial things that would be very easy to lie to yourself about or lie to your coach about and tick. We all have that almost like not alter ego, but that subconscious voice that we can't lie to that. We can see. It's like
Yeah.
I always stress to people when they're traveling or they're on the road for business or whatever it may be, that when you sit on the bed, end of your bed at the end of the day in your hotel room, did you really make an excuse or could you have executed?
Mm,
Whether you relay that to me as your coach or not, that's a powerful conversation. If the answer is I probably made some excuses, I could have got it done, that eats away at that thing we raised earlier, which is, self confidence in
mm.
your ability to execute. Um, with the audio down and camera overheating, we'll slowly bring it to a close. I really appreciate your time, buddy. But one thing I wanted to ask is what message would you give to someone who they're currently in a situation where maybe they want to change, but they have some self-limiting beliefs, and whether that belief is I'm too busy, I
Mm.
travel too much, it would be selfish to do so. Like, what would the message be from you to them?
Well, if the first one is it'll be selfish to do so, I'd recommend reading a book called No More Mr. Nice Guy, which sounds like a bad title, but it's got a good meaning to it. So if you're thinking about how you can be better for your family or better at work or anything else, this is a book about how being better to yourself allows you to be better for your family. So the selfishness point we covered off on that. So I definitely recommend reading that book. Um, and then it's like it is daunting. I think I was in the same position. I was like, how am I actually going to fit this all into my day? And I think the first thing is though, if you've actually had the thought that I actually want to do this, I need to do this. I think that is the absolute first step. It's probably the same as anything, right? If you're a smoker, you have to want to actually give up. So if you actually want to go ahead and do this, you might be busy, you might have family around, there might be a lot of different considerations, but putting the things in place to allow you to achieve those goals is possible. I wouldn't have thought that I'd be able to get from where I started to where I am now in 6 months, and then also have, the desire to go further. It's about taking that first step, and it is. Let's be frank. There's a reason why I'm talking to Jamie. There's a reason why I'm continuing with the program. It is about having the things around you which are going to help you to execute. Nobody can do anything on their own, especially something as probably difficult as getting yourself from a pretty negative position into a pretty positive one. We wouldn't expect to do that in any other form of life, right? We would expect to have coaches and whatever else around us, especially if you're busy, especially if you've got a lot of work on and whatever else it would be. So it's definitely possible. And I think the reward that will come out the back end of it is not just that reward of I've achieved a certain goal, it's the reward in knowing that you've got a system in place that's going to be able to achieve for the rest of your life. And you can then just carry on and be that person that you've always wanted to be.
I love it, mate. That was brilliant. Really appreciate your time today on the podcast. Like I said, we'll bring it to a close. We finally got audio back. I'm not sure what happened there, but mate, brilliant conversation, and I'm sure there's been a lot of value for a lot of people listening. I hope you've enjoyed it as well. Appreciate your time, and it's check-in day. So
Yeah,
I'll go over the
check the
results.
pitches.
Yeah, exactly. I'll have a look today and I'll get your check-in over to you. But
Brilliant.
really appreciate it, buddy. Crack on with your work day, and we'll catch up soon and cry together about Jurgen Klopp leaving, I'm
Oh,
sure.
I know. I mean, this has been staring at me the whole time, right? So, I
Oh,
mean,
devastating. I've been so engrossed in that conversation. Now it's coming to a close. I've just locked back into reality of what's going on.
yeah.
But
Oh
there we
dear.
go. But your
Anyway,
journey's been an incredible one, mate. And yeah, thrilled to be a part of it. It's been an absolute honor and a pleasure, and super excited to push on through this next phase. So I appreciate you joining in on this episode of the Consistency Club podcast. Thank you, anyone that's listening, and I'll see you in the next one.
fantastic. Cheers, Jamie.